Hi, this is your coach JDP, and you are excellent. You are excellent is all about demystifying coaching for underestimated people from under-resourced zip codes. We seek to demystify coaching and mentoring so that you can leverage these resources to find the keys to success in your particular career, in your particular company, and maybe even in your life. Today, I'm so thrilled to have Tom Epps talking to us today. Tom is a senior technology executive who has held multiple sales and customer success and professional services leadership roles at public and private companies. He's built and scaled like sales and customer success organizations. I know I worked with him at one of them. And dude, he like when I read his bio, he's throwing out numbers like billions. All right. This is the caliber of person that we're going to be talking to today. But more importantly, he's the founder and CEO of Leadership Development Group. Tom is dedicated to shaping the future of leadership in the private and nonprofit sector. So I'm going to let him talk about that, but I'm going to shut up here and say to Tom, welcome to URXcellent. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, JDP. Really great to be here.
Oh, man. Thank you. You're very kind. And so, Tom, I wanted to bring you on because I feel that your voice is one that's really important to get out there. As we were speaking before we started recording, I learned so much from you just watching you at our former company operate with nonprofits. And so I want to take this first question to take the opportunity to say, hey, Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in leadership for really most of my life. It's something that kind of happened in part because I found out early on that I loved sports and I was on the captain of a couple of different teams, and I really enjoyed not because I was the center of attention, but because I was able to help other players who were just coming on that were, like where I was when I first started. And that's sort of also what I discovered is in college that I just love being around people. And I ended up doing a sales role for a beer company in college, and not that hard to sell beer, of course, to college students, but it was an opportunity that involved a lot of school fundraisers and events on campus, and I met a lot of leaders on campus. I met staff, faculty, athletic director at school, and so that's really early on. I kind of it shaped me to understand sort of where I wanted to go in life. And I didn't get to leadership right away, of course. I did a lot of individual contributor type roles, but once I had my first shot at doing it in a very, very small company, I knew right then and there that was sort of my calling. And that's what I've been doing for the last 35 so years.
Wow. So I'm not even going to try to go down that rabbit hole. College kid working for a beer company selling beer. I'm sure there's a bunch of stories there, but I digress.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need to go over those.
So we're here to talk about coaching, right? And you as coach. So did you always know you were going to be a coach? You said that you had you're coaching and mentoring your teammates. Tell me a little bit more about what drove you to coaching.
When I started with my first company, it was very small. It's like a 25-person company, and it was like a typical small startup, right? You wore lots of hats, but very early on, the company decided they really wanted to expand. And so they were looking for someone to potentially move to the West Coast and start up essentially a region for the company where the company had almost no customers. And, I was kind of an ambitious person, so I raised my hand, but it was going to be a big task for me, right? I'd never built a team before, never had anyone working on my team before, essentially. And yet it was a great challenge, and it was an opportunity to really sort of demonstrate to myself that I can take on big challenges. So just by nature of the role, I had to go and immediately start hiring people. Mm-hmm. And so I learned early on the mistakes of making good hires, the mistakes of making bad hires, but also making great hires, the difference and what to look for in people. So that was, so really I started right from ground zero in, not even having a team and having to build one. And then once I learned how to build and shape a team, and start to look for different types of characteristics where a team actually would work together successfully, because that's one of the the great mysteries of leadership, right, is how do you build a good team and a high performing team, and one that gets along and loves to work together, right? And the rest of the organization wants to work with that team. But I immediately started getting great results working with these individuals. And so it was like positive reinforcement that not only was I able to find some good people that really were great performers, but I was able to help shape the team. I was able to help coach them because they didn't know anything about the industry or the company. So it was a tall task, but I got a lot of success out of it, and it was great to see people that were also on the team that later on and went on to other bigger roles in the company. And that kind of is the big piece for me is seeing people that you work with that actually go on and perform and go on to really big roles somewhere else, either in the company or somewhere else.
Now, Tom, there's a saying that says leaders are not born, they're made, right? Through fire, through trial, through error, right? Through thick and thin. In this journey, did you have a mentor coach that you could rely on? Again, you said, hey, I didn't know what I was doing. So how did you navigate that? And did you have a mentor coach that helped you along the way?
I did. In fact, I would say I had a couple. It was a small company. And of course, I went on later and worked in a couple of very large software companies. But early in my experience, I knew that I didn't know what I didn't know. So I sought out mentors in the organization, as well as even outside of the organization as well. I think it's critical to have both an internal mentor, and maybe more than one, but also external mentors who can not be caught up in the politics of the company and the dynamics of relationships and other things that can give you an unbiased sort of view in terms of advice. So I had the CEO actually because it was small. I had access to the CEO of the company as well as the COO. And then I had other people that were ahead of me in college that were in similar types of roles that I reached out to. So I used my network inside of the school that I went to as well, and in addition to some other people that I knew that had a couple of years ahead of me and were already in business for a while. So I'd say I had 3 or 4 people that were go-to people.
Say, Tom, when, a lot of our viewers are young, a lot of our viewers are early career, some are sort of budding people managers. Some might
Yep.
even be new people managers. When we walk into these environments of responsibility and leadership, sometimes the dreaded imposter syndrome kicks in, right? Did you have any of that, or was this more a natural thing for you? How did you navigate those waters?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to values. My values, I feel like I got good values from my parents, and that was critical for me in terms of how I guided my life as well as how I interacted with people. So I think what was natural for me was figuring out how to work with all different types of people, and recognizing that everyone has a different perspective on life. People have different values, and you sort of need to figure those out as you learn how to coach people, because everyone is motivated in a different way. And so I think that came naturally to me. The big wars with, getting big deals done. I mean, those are things that you kind of have to go and be battle tested to really know how to get through. But I think at the fundamental level, if you have strong personal relationships with people and you really know how to work with people well and different types of people, it really takes you a long way in terms of really building a good team that works well together, that likes each other, and can be successful together.
You're hitting on something I've always wanted to ask, so the dreaded, are you a people person?
Well, it's funny because I would say people who know me at different times of my life would have a different answer to that, because clearly the people that knew me in college probably would say, yeah, absolutely, Tom was a people person. But I was a more shy person, actually, when I was younger. And there are even scenarios where I'm probably I'm not extrovert, I'm not introvert, I'm sort of a slightly extrovert. So that's worked for me. What sometimes is a challenge is that, sometimes people look for leaders to be cheerleaders, if you will, right? And there are some leaders that are fantastic at that, and I know how to do that. I wouldn't say it's unnatural for me to do it. I'm not always that way, and some people are always on that way. But I find what worked for me, and you have to find the right style that works for you best. You have to be natural and not force it, or else it becomes very obvious, right? That you're not you're not acting sort of the way you really are. But for me, I would say people know me that I'm very social. I'm outgoing, but I'm also can be the person that sits at a party that wants to talk one-on-one with just a couple of people. I can be the life of the party, but I probably tend to be more. I like more engaging with people on a one-to-one level rather than running the room and hitting, moving around the room and talking to 50, 60 people in a night. And that can be fun too, but I enjoy the more intimate conversations.
Yeah, I was just recently at a luncheon for the coaching chapter, New Jersey chapter, and there were like 30 people in the room, and I'm like literally fluttering between conversations. There's so many interesting people. I can't help it. I'm just like, I have to be that guy that has to meet everybody. So let's talk a little bit about your business. So tell me a little bit about what you got going on, what you're doing, and the
Yep.
impact that you're having.
I launched my LLC about a year ago, a little less than a year ago, and it was a journey for me, honestly, to figure out this is what I truly wanted to do. I wasn't sure on initially, when I left the big company that this was the path. So I would say to anyone who's thinking about coaching, whether new coaching or a career change, give yourself time and space to figure it out,
Mhm.
because I didn't rush into it, partly because I just wasn't sure that I wanted to leave the corporate environment. But what I'm doing now is I'm mentoring, coaching a couple of different executives. One's a chief revenue officer, another is a CEO, smaller companies. And it's been fantastic because unlike the large corporate environment, where you might lead a team and it might be super exciting to do that, in my case, a lot of times they were sales leadership roles, and so I was leading a team driving sales. In this case, I'm working on strategy. I'm working on recruiting. I'm working on operational excellence. I'm working on business development strategies. I'm working with the marketing team.
Amazing.
So I'm working with a lot of different executives across the organizations on a lot of things that I might not normally be able to touch necessarily when I was working for a bigger company. And that's super rewarding. And, when you go into coaching, people are paying you, for the work, right? Whereas you work for a big company and, they pay you, but, and you have to generate results. But the relationship's a little bit different. In this case, it's you really need to provide great value back to the client, and if you do, then guess what? Then they'll ask you to get more engaged, and that's kind of what happens. So
Mm.
I have a couple of clients I'm working with right now, and it's been really a wonderful experience, honestly.
Yeah, and for everybody that's watching, we'll include all of Tom's socials down in the description. So please let us know if you have any questions or how we're doing. Hey, Tom. So I understand that you're involved in a lot of volunteer type work and you do a lot of board work. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I've been involved in board work probably for like about 20 years now. Honestly, I got involved in it really at first because my dad actually got Parkinson's. And so I got involved with the Michael J. Fox Foundation. A friend of
Ah,
mine also, his parent had Parkinson's. So that really got me involved in sort of this whole mission in supporting a really great mission. And then that kind of led me to explore other board work because I just felt like giving back was important. One of the things I got involved in earlier on in my career also was working with high schools in my area. There's an organization called NIFTY, a National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship, and it's fantastic because it goes in to these underserved areas and teaches kids how to actually build a business plan. And these kids all launch businesses.
wow,
It was from, washing cars to DJ services to, whatever, you name it. It was all over the
that's
map.
awesome.
Yeah, oh, yeah, it was great. And so that kind of led me to do something a little bit more later on when I was working at one of my big companies. They were a big supporter of an organization called Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Mm,
And they actually invited me to be on their board. So I've been doing that
wow.
for the last several years. And I have to tell you, there's nothing better than working in the nonprofit industry, supporting some really important causes. So anyway, that's a little bit of history for me around that.
So, when we look at, like, everybody says, oh, board, right? Not bored, but board.
Right.
The other board. Um, what do board members do? Again,
Yeah.
it's kind of demystified that for us.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different opportunities to join different types of committees depending on what your interests are. So with LLS, I'm actually part of the Light the Night committee, and Light the
Yeah.
Night is the largest fundraiser in the U.S. It supports cancer research. And what's the reason that LLS is special to me because they're actually the number one funder of the major breakthroughs in research in the last decade in cancer, and so I'm involved in that, and I'm also involved in advocacy. So I'm starting to get involved in with local politicians in the Connecticut area, hoping to go to Washington D.C. and advocate for childhood cancer research, which is very underfunded in general. And there's also not access to new cancer therapies for a lot of Black and Hispanic
Mm.
patients who just don't have access to it. So doing some work in that area as well.
You talked about your early career and you starting to be a people manager, people leader, all the way through jumping through what you have going on now, right? Working for big
Yeah.
corporations and tech and other industries. What would you say has been the most important factor for you in your success?
Well, I think the biggest factor for me is just the people around that I've worked with, right? Both on my team, on the other teams, right? That obviously support our success. And of course, really always being focused on customers. You have to be very customer centric. In this case, client centric, right? In terms of hearing and listening. Um, a lot of the times when especially if you're a new leader, and this is one of the first things I did with one of my first clients is I took them through the whole process of moving from individual contributor role to a leadership role,
Mm.
because that's what they were actually going through. And so I could probably write a book about it because I spent a lot of time documenting this whole thing.
Well, if you do,
But
I'll definitely buy and read it. I know there's going to be some good gems in there.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah. So I think that was a big part of that was coaching, not doing, right? I have about 12 or 13 things that I sort of wrote down that I walked them through. But, I think the biggest thing I see with people who move into leadership that haven't done it is that transition is tough because they're so used to doing everything, right? Getting it
Mm.
all done. And you really have to let yourself go, right?
Mm.
Because you do have to occasionally step in and know when it's right to do it, but it's to step in very, very, very briefly and then step back out again, right?
Yeah.
So, it's that I know sometimes it can be tough because you see someone struggling with something and you can do it in 10 minutes, but that's not what you're there for, right? You're there to help them teach them how to do it, right? And sometimes you have to give them enough rope to possibly make some mistakes, but at the same time, not critical mistakes that sort of
Yeah.
are unrecoverable, right? So that's sort of the magic there. But yeah, I think anyone who wants to go into leadership, I think it's important to make sure that you spent a lot of time with a leader letting them mentor you, right? And so they can really understand what you're going to be expected to do, because it's a very different transition.
Same time, when we talk about this, I don't want to gloss over goal setting. How important was goal setting for you as you navigated these various companies, leadership positions, people that you managed? How
Yes.
was goal setting for you and all through all this?
Oh, it's critical. I think one of the things that leaders might not do as much of, and especially when they're new to leadership, is planning, right? And I know
Mm,
a lot of people, like particularly in sales, don't like to put the time into building a territory plan or an account plan or what have you. But it even comes back to even being more fundamental than that. It's building a vision, right? That's the first thing I always tell leaders is that you need to build a vision for your business, right? And a couple of companies I worked with, big companies, did a great job of that, right? It's all about alignment of the organization around common goals and also building values, right?
mm.
That not just your values, but the values of the collective, to make sure that everyone's aligned around that. But goal setting isn't just about doing it once, right? It's constant. You need to constantly revisit. And one of the sayings that one of my bigger companies I worked with was this whole idea of paranoia, right? It's in disrupting your own business before someone else disrupts it for you, right?
Yeah.
And so that all comes back to key goal setting, not just for your business but also for yourself, right? That's another thing I saw a lot of times is people just don't spend enough time planning their own career, and you need to be open to career changes and direction. And actually, that sometimes a career change is the most beneficial thing to your career up to that point, even though sometimes it can be hard. I tell people all the time, your career journey is not a straight, right? It's you have some zigzags in there, and sometimes you have to go sideways to go forward, or even go backwards, if you will, to go forward. And all that, makes you who you are and makes you a stronger candidate for other positions as you move through your career.
Say, Tom, you dropped a little nugget, and I want to pick it up and examine it. You said we talked about the values of the individual, and then you said the values of the collective, and I was like, whoa, what does that even mean? Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
When I think about the collective, it's you think of an organization, and as an organization grows, you get different perspectives, different people that come from different cultures, different values, etc. And so you really have to be careful about incorporating as you add another team member. That's the collective that starts to ebb and flow and change. And the key thing is that you need to be flexible to adopt things that new people bring in, new ideas.
Mm.
Yet at the same time, if you have things that are great about your culture, you need to maintain those, right? And it's very, very hard, because I've been in companies that have grown dramatically from where they were when they started. And I think that's one of the hardest things to hold on to, is that you've got the new people that are sort of like thinking about things differently. And then you've got the old timers, if you will, who may miss the old days, but
Mm,
the old days weren't necessarily perfect, So
right.
the collective is really bringing the best of everyone, and that's kind of where diversity comes in, and everything else, right? To make sure that you're being the best you can be through inclusivity, diversity, and all that.
Tom, thanks, man. I have another question for you. Of course, I'm the host. Of course, I have questions. How you doing? Was this what you expected?
No, I'm doing great. I mean, I'll ask you, how do you think it's going? All
Oh,
right.
I think it's, hey, man, look, as I said before, for anybody who's watching, I work with Tom, and I'll give an instance. I was a brand new customer success manager, and I already had worked at several large corporations in a couple of different industries. And I was new to this particular role. And we had a major client, and we wound up on site with this major client. It was you, the salesperson, and myself. I'll never forget it. And I introduced myself, and you introduced, this is John, blah, blah. Hi, how you doing? And you could see, I don't know if you were intuitive about it or not, you could see that I was just kind of like fading back. And you just kind of like, no, John, you're good, man. Just relax and go with it, And you gave me, you allowed me to be at ease. You allowed me to be myself. You gave me the sense that I belonged in that room just as much as anybody else.
Well, that's great.
And yeah, and it's true. And I saw how you handled customers, how you interface, how you spoke. Very cool, very calm, but very knowledgeable, very quick on your toes. And I was like, Okay, and I learned a lot from you across our working relationship at that particular company. So, yeah, thanks, man. And that's how I'm doing because you're doing more of that right now.
Well, that's awesome. Well, you bring it, you talk about calmness, and I guess that's something that I think's played well for me in my career. There can be some very tense moments when you're dealing with a customer. That could be a tough one.
Yeah,
And I think having that calmness, it brings calmness to the rest of the team if you can do that successfully. And sometimes calmness isn't the right response, but generally speaking, it's there's no panic, right?
right.
I kind of I see that in athletes sometimes, and who could be down and out. They may golf or have a terrible first 2 rounds, but then there's a calmness about them that they don't get flustered, right? And I think that's a key attribute that's worked well for me.
So, Tom, we're not done yet. We're at the fun part of the show. So, we've gotten to know you across a couple of different questions, but I feel that those questions haven't done justice to getting to know Tom, the individual. So, Tom, I have a question for you.
All
Are
right.
you ready to take the Get to Know a Coach questionnaire?
Sure. Happy
Right.
to.
All right, awesome. He's game. Nice. So, folks, here we go. The Get to Know a Coach questionnaire. First question. I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm going to give you the chance. Favorite sport?
Hockey.
Hockey.
Well, let me
You
answer.
threw out tennis and golf. I thought it was going to be one of those. Hockey? Where'd that
Well,
come from?
well, let me just say to play, I would take tennis. To watch, golf. I'm sorry, hockey.
Hockey. Okay, hockey.
Yeah.
Awesome. How's the Stanley Cup's going so far? You got skin in
Um,
that game?
I don't have any skin in the game. I am a Ranger fan, but I was born outside of Philly, so I'm a Flyers fan, but they're a ways off. It'll
All
be.
right.
I moved to the Phillies, so.
All right. Next question. And this one we had to actually add to. So here it goes. Cats, dogs, or reptiles?
Dogs.
Dogs. You have a dog?
I did.
Oh,
Unfortunately, we lost him this year, but
oh, I'm sorry.
amazing golden retriever,
Nice.
and we're all debating about do we get another dog? So that's all running around in our family right now. But what
All
to do?
right. All right. Okay. So next question. Mountains or ocean/beach?
Ocean Beach.
Ocean beach. All right.
Yes.
Been near the ocean lately?
We live pretty close to Long Island Sound, so it's not
Nice.
the ocean, but it's close enough.
Close enough. Hey, it's
Yeah.
water, right?
Yeah. But you know what? I do love mountains too. I've done a lot of hiking through my life, and I love to ski. I don't ski so much anymore, but I have family that's near the mountains. So, but if I had to choose, I would always pick the ocean a little bit over mountains.
Okay. Next question. This one caused some controversy.
Uh-oh.
So I don't know where you're going to land on this one, but here we go.
All right.
Regardless of genre, medium, etc. Favorite artist?
Oh, that is a tough one. I don't want to say one that probably half the audience wouldn't even know. But
Hey, man, speak your truth.
well, I would say at one time it was Yes, a band from the 70s. So I did introduce that to my kids, so they do know who that is. But if more currently, I would say U2 or Coldplay.
Okay, cool. Well,
I know
respect.
I could say Taylor Swift, but I know a lot of people love that, but I do.
Are you a
Her music's
Swiftie?
okay.
Are you a
I would say
Swiftie?
I would say I'm a Swiftie, but her music's fine.
Okay. Final question, and this one, I feel really kind of tells. So, favorite food or cuisine?
Thai.
Ooh, interesting. Why?
Well, I kind of introduced to Thai food when I was in college, but I didn't have it too much. But we went on a trip to Thailand a pretty long time ago now, but one of my favorite places I've ever been. The people were very spiritual, very friendly,
Mm.
and I hadn't really tried true Thai food, sort of Americanized Thai food up to that point, but it was just fantastic. And
Wow.
talk about a beautiful country. And, so anyway, I just fell in love with Thailand, and I fell in love with the food. So, but I love food. I love Vietnamese food too. I'm a foodie, I would say,
Okay.
for sure. I love just about everything.
But you land on Thai. That's awesome. So,
Thai.
hey, Tom, thanks. You're a great sport. Thank you so much for being here today. And before we leave from my audience, do you have any parting words?
Yeah, I would just say, regardless of where you are in your career, really make sure that you always have people there to help guide you along, and whether they're officially a coach, or whether they're just people that you can speak truth to, and they'll speak truth back to you. Make sure you have those people in your life, because they're important not just for your career, but frankly, just through decisions you make around life in general. You'll go through a lot of different times and periods of your life, which are highs and lows, and having those people there to help you get through those and think through those things are super important.
Awesome. Tom, thank you again so much for being here with us today on You Are Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Guys, we've been talking to Tom Epps. You'll find his socials and a little bit more about him in the description. Please feel free to let us know how we did. And if you liked with the content, please like and subscribe, or give us some suggestions about topics that you'd like to us to focus on. This is your coach, JDP. And remember, you are excellent. Take care. See you next time. Bye.